Video games have gone woke, and this is a problem. At least according to some people. This year has brought us a plethora of woke video games, such as Dead Space having gender-neutral bathrooms, Baldur's Gate 3 having an inclusive character creator and diverse relationship options, Horizon Forbidden West and the DLC that gave us the option for Aloy to kiss another girl, and of course Starfield with its sinister ploy to allow choice of pronouns in the character creator. However, all of these games have been well received and have been very popular, which begs the question,
does it matter that they're woke?
Naturally, the people who say that something is woke and therefore they won't play it and they even encourage others to not play it either, they do so because they think that this is a bad thing. But why? Attributing something's lack of quality and enjoyment to it being woke seems like a very inconsistent way of deeming quality. Because let's make this 100% clear, the word woke nowadays is pretty meaningless. It's a word that gets thrown around in so many different contexts with very little consistency, where it used to belong to the black community as a way to remind each other to stay aware of the social and racial injustice that was happening in these communities. Then it slowly began morphing into an artistic critique of film studios or other entertainment branches incorporating cheap diversity and representation into well-established franchises to try and profit off of the mostly progressive consumer base, because diversity and progressive ideology is the standard in Western society, and so there's a reason for this trend. However, these attempts at making entertainment more progressive and in line with more modern ideas and ways of thinking weren't always done with care, at least according to the critique, which I think there is some validity to, and so many people felt that while there was nothing wrong with a black person starring in Star Wars or the idea of an all-female Ghostbusters, the way this representation was executed left the story suffering, because the studios cared more about pleasing the feminists or activists than creating a good story. Now, whether or not you agree with sentiments like these is beyond the point, because at least there was a coherent argument, something for us to debate. And while I think a lot of people went into this debate in bad faith, using this argument of deeply caring about the media itself as a way to mask their true ideas, which often stemmed from bigotry, there was still a level of sincerity to the core argument that seems to be lost nowadays, because suddenly the word woke started being used in politics and the mainstream media, and it got thrown around so much so that now it's just become a buzzword to mean anything people on the right don't like. It's become synonymous with left-leaning politics, identity politics, and just progressivism in general. Everything is woke. From movies and TV shows, to comic books, to chocolate bars and M&Ms, to beer, and of course video games, which will be the focus of today's video, because there are still so many people who will actively look for anything that can be deemed woke, because they despise wokeness and what it represents, when all that this hatred really does for them is ruin the gaming experience. Because a game can be universally loved and adored and have a lot to offer, but if it has even one or two aspects that gets the woke alarm blaring, then all ability to enjoy the game has been lost for some people. Like I said, this year has already provided us with great examples of this, be it the choice of pronouns in Starfield causing people to refund a game that they were otherwise excited to play, or people complaining about a bathroom in Dead Space being gender neutral, when gender neutral bathrooms are really not that uncommon. For example, bathrooms on public transports. However, they now get associated with gender politics and trans people, which in other words is woke. And so this rather small change to the environment of Dead Space supposedly dragged people out of the immersion of one of the best remakes in recent years. However, it's not just this year that we've seen reactions like these. We had people complaining about Thor being fat in God of War Ragnarok, a game that takes plenty of creative liberty, but oh no, we cannot have a big fat strong man because having some size is woke now for some apparent reason.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
What about Miles Morales having a Black Lives Matter mural? Because that's very unlike New York, right? A mural like this could never exist in real life. Immersion breaking. We also have costumes in fighting games being tweaked to not be overly sexual despite still being quite heavily sexual, but sure.
Immersion breaking.
And God forbid the video games have black people in them, or unsexualized women, or any gay characters. Heck, at this point, the game of chess is going to be accused of being woke now, because the queen is the strongest piece, while the king, the man, is useless. What were those damn developers thinking back in the day? Now, this joke was not not mine, it's from a lovely channel member, which reminds me, you should check out my memberships or my Patreon. It really helps out the channel, and it allows me to spend more time and resources on my videos. You can also always support me by simply leaving a like and subscribing, it helps out more than you know. Anyways, back to the video. Now I think gaming has a unique angle when it comes to the woke debate, because what is the main consequence to media that people associate with wokeness? It's not the quality of the media or even really the politics that are necessarily in focus. Don't get me wrong, many people do not like progressive politics and they do believe that so-called woke ideology is toxic, problematic, and dangerous. But that's not always really the emotional core of the argument. When I see people talking about wokeness, the first sin it causes is that it breaks immersion. It takes you out of the thing you're consuming, and instead of being actively engaged with the media, you're instead forced to hear someone preach about identity politics or political correctness, or having to choose pronouns. And if immersion really is the main target of wokeness in media, then gaming should suffer more than most other forms of media, be it movies or TV shows, books and comics, advertisements, you name it, because gaming is built on the premise of immersion. Unlike a movie where hopefully you're guided meaningfully through an emotional story that you can connect with on some deeper level, gaming can give you that same experience, except you're the one doing it. You're the hero, you're the one interacting with all these different facets of this media. Without your actions moving the plot or story along, then there is no game. And some games provide more freedom and autonomy to the player with minimal focus on story, while others are very heavily story focused, but the player always has some level of impact on the game progressing, unlike if you're watching a movie. This is, after all, the whole point of video games, and this is not to say that gaming is the superior form of consuming entertainment, not at all. That's completely up to the individual. I don't believe the functional immersion that gaming brings is better or worse than, say, the immersion a movie gives you. They're just different types of media, where they each provide a different level of immersion. With gaming, you're doing things to progress the story, and so I can imagine that if one of the main problems with wokeness is that it breaks immersion, then this could be even more jarring with a video game compared to a movie, for example, because you put more of yourself into a game than a movie. And so, if more of you is at stake while playing a video game, then this threat that is wokeness, whether it be a black character in your God of War game, or the option to kiss a girl while playing as a girl, or choosing pronouns, will likely hit even harder because of the type of media. That's at least my theory, and this of course stems from the charitable view that people who do complain about wokeness are genuine. That's not necessarily the case, and I do believe there are a lot of people who pretend that this is anything deeper than just internalized bigotry, reactionary attitudes, and ignorance. Not always intentional or malicious, but nevertheless harmful. Because bigotry, reactionary attitudes, and most of all, ignorance, are the cornerstones of far-right ideologies. And I don't think it's just the immersion part that makes gaming such a sensitive victim of wokeness for so many people. I also just think that a large portion of the gaming community is already susceptible to anti-woke views. If we go by the common stereotype of a typical gamer, then I'd say they're probably more likely to have a bit more reactionary views, or at least that anti-woke sentiments appeal more to them. And this can be due to many reasons, most of all social reasons. Being on the internet all the time, not spending a lot of time outside, meeting new people, and in general being stuck in very small communities. Naturally, this is far from every gamer. Luckily, a lot of the stigma surrounding gamers has been lifted, and it seems to be considered more normal to be a gamer nowadays than say 10 or 20 years ago. However, some of the sentiments of Gamergate can definitely still be felt today, that many gamers don't like it when outside forces try to infiltrate the medium and change it to fit with their own politics, without having any regard for gaming as an art. Gamergate started because gaming was beginning to gain more mainstream attention, and so came opinions that clashed with the core mentality of the majority of gamers, the main threat being feminism. There were a couple of feminists who criticized the common portrayal and over-sexualization of women in video games, a method of entertainment mostly engaged with by men, at least at the time, and this caused a vitriolic reaction from parts of the gaming community. This is of course an oversimplification of what Gamergate was. There are plenty of videos that go in depth with all the drama, controversy, and harassment that went on, but the reason I'm mentioning it now is because the anti-woke sentiment we've been dealing with for the past couple of years has been an evolution of the discourse we saw during Gamergate. However, what does this all mean? Why am I pointing out my theories for why anti-wokeness and gamers go hand in hand? Well, I personally think that it's important to try and understand the people we're talking about, The people who are upset, angry, and even outraged because of wokeness. The people who vocally call out any diversity and representation in media. Because if we understand the people and ideas we're trying to address, argue against, and change, then these efforts will ultimately be more effective. And so this brings us to the core question of this video. Have video games gone woke? And if yes, then is that a bad thing? Again, let's reiterate that the word woke is very hard to pinpoint any real and consistent definition for, because it's become an umbrella term for progressive ideology and its effect on entertainment and culture in general. It can essentially mean a great many things. However, I think it's fair for the sake of argument to define wokeness as leftist or progressive ideas, ideology, rhetoric, and actions, which is what I think most people associate with wokeness. And so, if we go based on this definition, that a video game being woke means that there is more focus on diversity and representation, being able to more openly portray characters of color, gay or trans characters, women, or the attempts to make gaming as a whole appeal to more broader audiences by also tackling some of the problematic aspects of gaming culture that has kept a lot of people out for so long, such as racism, sexism, and homophobia. Then yes, many of these things are more present nowadays in gaming than they were a decade or two ago. There has been more of a shift to reflecting on these issues and doing something about them. However, that doesn't mean these things are perfect nowadays. There are still plenty of issues within gaming, the main one being greedy corporations still being just as greedy as ever. And while the people making the games may be progressively minded or inclusive, the studios behind the games understand that progressive ideas are more popular than non-progressive ideas. Having more diversity and more wholesome/inclusive communities sells better than the alternative, if not always in pure sales, then also just in terms of positive public perception and advertisements. And while gaming in general becoming more progressive absolutely is a positive thing, that doesn't mean it still isn't being pushed by greedy corporations that don't really care about those positive effects, that only really care about the money they make because of it. However, yes, if we go off of the reductive meaning of woke, that is simply progressive things and modern day Western politics, then yes, gaming is probably more woke now than it has been before. But has this really been to the detriment of the quality of immersion of gaming, or to its benefit? Well, some people would probably say that wokeness is destroying gaming, while a more clear-headed person would probably say that it's more nuanced than that. Naturally, whether a video game is good and enjoyable or not is up to the individual's experience with the game, and so a game like The Last of Us 2, which has been deemed woke, which is fair because Naughty Dog is a pretty openly progressive studio, is a game that received very mixed reactions, a lot of people hating it and a lot of people loving it. Some of the people who think that it's woke will say that the wokeness is part of the reason for its downfall, while other people will attribute the progressive undertones as one of the reasons why it's enjoyable. There are naturally also many people who love or hate it for reasons completely unrelated to wokeness, but this video is about the woke discourse, and so there often isn't really a correct answer. If someone feels that the diversity or social themes in this game are shoehorned in to gain positive press and that the story suffers because of it, then that's their experience of the game, and we can't really tell this person that they should enjoy the game when they don't. I do believe it's perfectly fine to not like a piece of media that's woke. Heck, there are many so-called woke movies, shows, or games that I don't think are good, but there are at least just as many, if not a lot more, woke movies, TV shows, or video games that I think are amazing. My argument is that wokeness, which entails diversity, representation, and progressive ideas, will never make a video game bad. A bad game is a bad game and a good game is a good game, and both can be woke. This year alone proves this, because most of the games that have been labeled woke and caused outrages such as Dead Space, Baldur's Gate 3, Hogwarts Legacy, and Starfield have all been commercial and critical successes. And if we look back throughout the years, we'll see several woke video games that haven't done very well, and woke games that absolutely have done well, both in terms of profit, because that's what a lot of anti-woke sentiments emphasizes, and in terms of public reception. This video is naturally not made to tell you that you have to like something that I say you should. No, if you don't like a piece of media, then that's perfectly fair. And even if you believe that part of the reason is that it's preachy in nature or that its social message gets in the way of the story, then by all means talk about it. After all, your own immersion is the most important thing when it comes to your own experience with the media, not anyone else's. However, diversity and representation will never be a bad thing, and that's important for us to remember. Making more of an effort to portray people of color, women, and LGBTQ+ people in media alongside white straight men, who have been the dominant social group throughout most of Western entertainment, is not a bad thing. It's a positive thing, and sure, sometimes a woke movie or video game comes out that we don't like, and we can absolutely talk about that. We can try to analyze why we don't like this movie. But there are also many other woke movies that we do end up enjoying, and we can look at the reason why we enjoy them. The wokeness itself is not the problem, and us having turned woke into such an important topic of discussion in entertainment nowadays has been one of the more destructive implementations to discourse within fandoms and entertainment. It's fine to be angry when your immersion is broken in a video game. That fucking sucks. But take some time to understand why that is, and if possible, try not to attribute this anger to all of entertainment. Hyper-focusing on wokeness, which bears very little meaning and definition, not only helps to sour the general conversation surrounding entertainment, it also plays a part in ruining your own experience with the entertainment in general. Because while one so-called woke video game might be a bad video game in your eyes, then I assure you there will be another game that will sing your song, even if it has some progressive aspects. So rather than focusing on the wokeness in general, focus rather on you and what media you want to consume. I promise it'll make your ride more enjoyable. So to sum up, if we define woke in this very superficial way, then yes, gaming and entertainment has gone woke, but that doesn't really mean anything towards quality, and it only causes political discourse rather than what most fans of media want the discussion to be about, the media, and our experiences with it. Anyways, I want to hear your thoughts on this topic. Do you think I've said something valid, or am I completely off course? Let me know down below. Also, like and subscribe to help out the channel, but other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching, and peace out.